And we are back. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be unto you all. This is your Black is STEM platform, the STEM Files, the voice of STEM talent in Black culture. We do our best to highlight the best and brightest in science, technology, engineering, mathematics across the Black and brown diaspora. I am your co-host, the brilliant engineer, joined with the chief mechanic and always brother Tariq Cardiac. We have our dynamic sister, Ilyasah Muhammad, STEM and biology teacher. We're going to talk about biology and how used in this right way can be utilized to help change the world. Make sure you get out your notepads. Make sure you tune in and hear more and watch more after this. Let's get into it, family.
You believe in these false prophets, I say I bet he lying. No football, New York City Giants. Girl dad, rest in peace to Kobe Bryant. When we teaching our babies, we teach them heavy science. Heavy science. Heavy science. When we teaching our women, we teach them heavy science. Heavy science. Heavy science.
Praise be to Allah. Again, family, on this platform, we teach heavy science. Again, welcome back. Make sure at this point, family, we want to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification button on our YouTube at the STEM Files to tap into all things the voice of STEM talent in Black culture. Let's get it started. I am your humble co-host, Jabril Muhammad, aka Brilliant Engineer. I am a civilian mechanical engineer with a focus on naval ship fluid systems and a background in material science and engineering, the study of the various material classes and how they can be utilized for different applications. Joined by the queen, the wonderful. This is Dr. Joy, aka the chief mechanic. What's going on?
All praise due to Allah. Thank you, brother. I am Sister Dr. Joy 2X, aka the Chi Mechanic, and I've been studying and practicing traditional Chinese medicine for ongoing 12 years. And in TCM, we understand that the body innately knows and desires how to heal itself. So that's the medicine that I offer. I'm here to assist you in that journey like a mechanic for your vital energy.
Mechanic for your vital energy. I thought this is a song title. I like that. Praise be to Allah. Always joined, though he's here in spirit, has something very important to take care of. Our dear brother Tariq Muhammad, aka Tariq Cardiac, a biomedical research scientist with a background in biomedical cardiovascular biology with the study of diseases, how I'm messing this all up. How diseases form in the heart and blood vessels. You're going to get on me for that. Tariq Cardiac family. Pardon me. I got to slow down. It's all good. But family, as we always say, it's not about us. It's not about us as the co-host, because we could talk forever. And yes, we have scientific backgrounds. We really want to highlight who we bring to you, as they have so much to offer. And at the very least, whether you choose to pursue what it is they pursue or STEM at all, you can be inspired to pursue that which God has put on your heart and your mind. So without further ado, we want to transition to our sister Dr. Joy to go into our sister Ilyasah Muhammad's bio, and then we'll go from there, fam.
Praise be to Allah. Well, Sister Ilyasah Muhammad hails from Houston, Texas, and she is a STEM and biology teacher. And the STEM courses she focuses on is health and biomedical sciences, as well as architecture. And she also teaches her students 3D printing and guides them through 3D design and application. So welcome, Sister Ilyasah.
Thank you so much.
Praise be to Allah. And so, sis,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, sis. I'm sorry. No, you got it. You got it.
Jump right into it because
go right into it. Yes, ma'am.
I have no idea. Can you please just tell us a little background about how you even got involved with something like 3D printing? That is something that is completely new to me. I know a little bit about CAD and that science, but I have no idea really about 3D printing.
So my students, when I taught elementary school, we started doing 3D printing with them. And we started making little keychains first. So they made keychains. I taught them how to make bubble ones. So they had to 3D print them, and then they were blowing bubbles in them. But it's really something that they've implemented in our STEM curriculum because it's really big now in a lot of industries. So they want us to teach the students young so that when they get to high school, they can make even bigger projects.
Excellent.
I love that, when I was reading your bio, I love juxtaposition or how you're involved in so many different things. So you have STEM, right, a specialization with biology, and then you're doing 3D printing. So if we can take a step back, right? So what is biology? Why biology for you? Kind of start us there and take us on that journey to now.
Well, I actually wanted to be a doctor. I did not want to be a teacher at all.
Yes, ma'am.
But I've always liked biology and then chemistry too, because it helped me understand myself. So when you're in biology, you learn about how your body works. You learn about how your cells work, how your nerves communicate with each other, all of those things. And so for me personally, it helped me advocate for myself better. Whenever I actually was sick or when I went to the doctor, I could tell them, I think I have bronchitis, or I think like I have an issue with this vitamin. And it made it easier for me to advocate for myself and understand how to keep myself healthy. So I've always loved biology for that reason. And then when I decided I didn't want to be a doctor, I was like, maybe I'll go into nursing. And I was like, And at the time I was teaching elementary. And I was like, I really just want to teach like health sciences and help the younger generation understand biology and chemistry and break it down to an easier level for them. Because a lot of teachers, they teach at this high level and the students really struggle to understand the basic concepts. So really, I was like, oh, please, please, please. If I could teach biology and biomedical science, that would be great. And that's just honestly how it worked out. So now I get to teach my students things that I learned in college, and they're learning it so much faster and at an earlier age too.
Praise be to Allah. I want to talk about that self-advocacy. I've never heard anyone express or talk about biology in that realm where it allows you to advocate for yourself, particularly in the healthcare field, where we know a lot of our people struggle with representation, not only in the field, but in being properly represented as far as what's going on with them. So it's like, okay, they talk about self-diagnosing and you don't want to do that, but at least if you can kind of have some concept like, hey, these are my symptoms, and with my background and things, I feel like this could be something to entertain. What do you think? And have that conversation. One of the things I think I learned from Brother Tariq, and I know you could probably attest to this, just the doctor, is that relationship between the patient and the doctor is so important.
Absolutely.
The more you're able to cultivate a relationship, the more I feel like the doctor feels that you care about your well-being, and then know not to, for lack of a better word, treat you poorly. They're going to put their best foot forward because they know, this person really cares. I can't just prescribe this or not prescribe that. I'm going to spend my time and spend it wisely. So thank you so much for that. Anything on that, Dr. Joy?
Yes, sir. Actually, I love too, sis, that you brought that up, because in the practice of acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine, I specifically like to call this a co-creative healing process with the patient. You are there, and it's a symbiotic relationship, because not only am I allowed to help treat, but they in turn are helping me to figure out correct diagnosis. Again, it all depends on the advocacy for themselves. I need to hear what's bothering you. I need to hear what has worked and what has not worked for you, to hone in on actually a therapeutic technique that will work for you. And so that is so important. And it falls right in line with the topic for tonight about how biology in the right hands can change the world. That is a crucial key to all of this. So thank you for bringing that up. And thank you for also speaking to keeping yourself healthy.
Yes.
So that's a beautiful segue. Sister Dr. Joy, you talked about those right hands. So again, right, tonight's topic, how biology, again, in the right hands can be used to change the world. So when you hear and you read that, title, what comes to mind for you, Sister Ilyasah? Like, what do you feel the right hands are? How should we frame our mind to understand that and move forward?
When I first read it, I thought about all the experiments that we do. But then when I thought deeper about it, I thought about the critical thinking skills that my students learn, that and experimental design. So yes, I'm teaching them about DNA and how to extract it. And yes, I'm teaching them about how to run like PCR and all these tests, but they're also learning how to think and how to critically solve problems for themselves. There's so many labs where I just give them things. I'm like, this is your objective. You need to create your experiment, make your own hypothesis, and figure it out. Like, I'm not going to tell you. So I feel like more than, yes, the scientific knowledge, they walk away learning how to problem solve and how to pick themselves back up again if it doesn't work out. And then it also makes me think about like the idea of just because we can do something scientifically doesn't mean that we should.
Come on.
There's a lot of things that we can do, but should we really do them? So it's just a two-pronged of critical thinking, but also knowing when to stop and knowing when this is something that I should not cross into.
Yes. I love that. And honestly, sis, when you were talking about experimental design, that just made my mind go right into, there is a difference between inquiry versus exploitation, right?
Yes.
And so when I'm thinking about what the right hands are, it's all about inquiring, having, you know, an open mind of exploration within STEM, you know, within our own experience in the human design versus someone, you know, a colonizer extracting any kind of anything from us, our bodies, our experience, and then, you know, doing whatever they want with it. So thank you for bringing that point up.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. I want to add really quickly to that because you brought up something. I forget who I was having a conversation with, but it might have been my wife. She had sent an article about a company or innovations in 3D printed meat. And I was basically making the point. I said, you know how it's very funny how like they make these posts and people are in awe over these inventions and innovations. And when you think about how the same people who give you an innovation created the problem. So for example, you over butcher livestock and you destroy the environment, and now things cost so much, so you want to cut costs. It's like, oh, let's start the 3D print meat and it's going to be, you know, healthier, when you could have just had some level of balance, which you did know how to do, but you were so money hungry and money driven that you put yourself in a hole, but now you're trying to dig yourself out with innovation that wasn't necessary in the first place. Yes. So I'm so glad you brought it up, but I didn't want you to get away from your point. You had something to add.
Yes, well, that actually made me think of a documentary that I show my students when we talk about antibiotics. I forget the name of it, but it's on YouTube. It's a PBS documentary about antibiotics and about antibiotic resistance. And the documentary starts off talking about different cases, and then we get to where Pfizer was actually like in the early 2000s. They were developing antibiotics that could treat I believe it's gram-negative or positive. I can't remember which one. But whichever bacteria is giving us the most problem with resistance, they were doing research for those bacteria. And they said, wait, this isn't going to make us a lot of money because if we cure the problem, people can't get sick and we can't get money. So they actually shelved it. So then my students and I talk about how important it is to take care of your body. And we talk about nutrition because, you know, we can talk about high blood pressure and how to take blood pressure all day. But we want to avoid having to do that every day. We don't want to have high blood pressure. So that's one thing I sneak in there with them, some nutrition. I tell them about their Takis, about their Cheetos and hot fries.
Talk about the Takis.
And then they go, wait a minute. And one student even asked me, they were like, wait a minute, miss. So the people that make our food, do they also help make drugs? And I was like, sometimes. And they were like, well, maybe there's not much nutrition in here, so I get sick. And then it just goes around and around. I was like, yeah, babe, it does. I'm sorry, but that's true. So it's very important to teach younger children, too, how to take care of their bodies so that when they're older, they're not reliant on all these medications.
Okay. Praise be to Allah. That is just excellent. Because you're right. You're both right. Those who pump the poison pump the pills for the cure. Like, that's just, it is what it is. We know this. And, you know, I'd be remiss, we all would be, if we didn't talk about also how to eat to live and how you are plugging that into the system of, you know, this is what the right hands look like to make that change for the children, especially for our future. Yes, ma'am.
So I'm thinking about like anatomy now. So we use the term right hands. Can we also talk about right words for a moment? So I always I think about this from time and time again when we talk about food. It's so interesting. So like if I want, like, let's say if I want a snack and I want ice cream or cookies or something, I'll say, maybe not me per se, but people will say like, let me treat myself to some ice cream. No one ever says, let me treat myself to some broccoli. Right? what is the psychology behind the word treat juxtaposed to the unhealthy things versus those things that are healthy in the context of this, biology in the right hands to help change the world?
That's a really good question and a really good point, because I have never heard somebody say, I'm going to treat myself to some bean soup. Like, never.
Right.
But I think it also goes into like, when we eat the sweet things, it makes us feel happy, or more about the way it feels than us thinking about what we're really putting in our bodies. Because I know for me personally, sometimes I'll buy candy for my students as a snack, but I got to keep it away from me because the moment they act up or stress me out, I'm like, ooh, I'm going to treat myself to a Twix. But again, I've never said I'm going to treat myself to some bean soup. So I think just the way that we think about food and what's in it, and then not letting like our emotions control it as well. Because it's easy to say, I'm really sad, I'm going to eat some ice cream.
Right.
As opposed to going, I'm really trying to take care of myself. I'm really trying to be healthy. Let me eat some bean soup and maybe some fruit instead of picking the unhealthy option.
Right. Yes, ma'am. And we have to think about that. In traditional Chinese medicine, we actually incorporate that into the diagnostics. We're talking mind, body, spirit medicine. So there is a psychological and emotional factor for looking at the spleen and the stomach, which is under the earth element. And earth, when you think about earth and the qualities of earth, that's mother, that's nature. And so where are we not being nourished, right? Where is that void or that lack of in our lives? And so that's what the mainstream world is pressing upon us, is go for the pleasure principle, right? Treat, right?
Yes.
Make sure that you are feeding into that. Something that your body doesn't even need. It doesn't even have any caloric benefits to it, right? But it's okay because it will psychologically soothe that emotional need to be nourished. And we don't know what nourishment is because we've been eating, collards and pig and all kinds of stuff for centuries. So we really have to look at what it is we're actually telling ourselves.
Yep. And I also think that language is really important, especially when I'm with my students, to not say, oh, I'm stressed, I'm going to eat a Twix. So I try to make sure I don't say things like that around them, because they're like 12 and 13 and they pick up on everything that I say and do. And so they're looking at me saying, I'm going to treat myself to a Twix. And that's not really a healthy habit that I want them to view and think is okay either.
Yes, ma'am.
So something that stuck out to me. So me and brother Tariq, I'm sure in some of the episodes you've seen, so we have this kind of healthy competition when it comes to our respective fields of STEM. I'm an engineer, of course, right? And brother's in the life sciences. So we always go back, well, what's more necessary for society, right? So whenever we hear somebody that transitions, like, so for example, from like life sciences to engineering, I like to see, like vice versa. But this is slightly different. So you talked about wanting to be a doctor, and then you transitioned to teaching. Can you unpack a little bit more as to what that journey was like? What was the main reasoning? Was it capability driven in your mind at one point, and do you think about it differently now? Do you feel like it's something that you looking back, oh, I wish I would have entertained, or you like completely fulfilled with? Because I'm sure, and I see some of your posts on social media, you really like what you do. So I don't think there's regret, like, hey, I regret being a teacher. So can you kind of walk us down that road a bit more and kind of unpack that for us?
Yes. So when I graduated from college in 2020, that was like right when COVID graced us all. So
there we go.
I went home for spring break and I only stayed home half a week. I came back and the next day I was back in the car on the way home. So that's really like what interrupted my plans per se. But honestly, when I was looking at a lot of the things that doctors were dealing with and how stressful they were dealing with a pandemic, that also just realizing that I would have to spend 4 years in med school. I would probably be away from my family. Then I would be in residency. And a lot of people, they graduate med school, but they're not guaranteed a spot in residency. And then just realizing that my ultimate goal in life is to be happy, right? And I can be happy doing anything really. But I really value my family and being around the people I care about. And so I kind of like had that like 6 months or so to stop and take stock and think about how if I choose to go down this path, I'm really going to be isolated. And yes, at the end, I'll be fulfilled. I'll be a doctor. I'll be saving lives. But there are other ways that I could do that as well. So that's kind of why I also was thinking about nursing school as well. But I think it was like a rough path emotionally because I didn't want to feel like I was giving up on myself. And I didn't want to feel like, oh, you could have been a doctor and you changed your mind and why. But once I really stepped back and was like, no, you do want to be a happy person that is surrounded by your family. You don't want to spend 8 more years, away across the country at school. And you can still literally teach the things that you would be doing. It made it easier for me to be more at peace with being an educator because I do love my job. Like I love working with my students. I get to run lab tests all day. Like it's a dream for a nerd like me. So it's not something that I regret at all.
Praise be to Allah.
Praise be to Allah. I just wanted to put that out there. I hate I guess at this point, old adage, those who can't do teach. I really believe those who can do teach and those who can do should teach. The teacher, right, is perhaps, if not the most important, it's a top 2 to 5 most important profession or just discipline in society.
Absolutely.
To be able to impart knowledge, wisdom, and understanding to one who does not have, and then after imparting it, then inspire and empower to act on it is such an underrated skill set. And I think we see on social media today, everyone's a guru, everyone's a teacher, everyone's a coach. And I think that we really don't always understand that that's more than having information and knowing how to do something. The Honorable Minister Farrakhan talked about, I believe this was during the Criterion, he talked about how a prophet is made a prophet. And them being a prophet is only made manifest by what they prophesied coming to pass. And he talked about himself as far as being the master of prophets. And basically, I'm forgetting the terminology he used, but confirming that which they prophesied about. So my thing is, as a teacher, I'm only as good as what my students are able to produce. So I'm a math tutor, right? If I want to call myself a good math tutor, I should see projected increase in marks during my tenure teaching. If not, well, at least I'm not the one for you. So that I think is so good. I'm so glad that you've taken that to heart and really see the strength in that title, because it definitely is underestimated, I feel like, today. Assistant Dr. Joy.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. I actually, before you even mentioned the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, it came to my mind something that he said in the Swan Song, and I pulled it up. So I really wanted to read it because it attests to Sister Ilyasah's, kind of going through, graduating and wanting to be a doctor, and then kind of realizing that this was the passion for teaching. So he says, because it is only when you get to know yourself that you can make a right contribution to the rise of your people. If you don't know yourself, you don't know where you are on the scale of knowledge. You are weak in your profession of faith. In your works pale into insignificance, because without faith you can't have works. And where there are no works, you can't say that you've got faith, because faith without works is
dead.
That's right. So I feel like that's a real testament, yes, ma'am, to what you're doing. Praise be to Allah.
So I'm interested. So I did a long-term substitute teaching position pre my starting as an engineer at a bilingual school, middle school in Philadelphia. It's called Antonia Pantoja Charter, and I taught 7th and 8th grade math and science. And one of the things that I realized, not that teaching is difficult, but there are so many components to being a teacher. I don't really think people understand. I feel like if you're a teacher, there should be no job like opening that you can't qualify for, to a degree. Like, okay, like you didn't go to school for like neurosurgery, so okay, and you ain't gonna be able to work on break, but like project management, counseling, social work, conflict resolution. There's so much. So can you take us through maybe a day in the life? No, and I'm telling you, sis, we need to hear this because I think we really don't get it. And I just got a snippet. I got a snippet of it. So please, take us through a bit of a day in the life. What may be a challenge for you in your profession, some rewarding successes. I'd love to hear it.
One thing I will say as a teacher, you have to always be on. Like your light bulb has to be on. You don't get a moment to just sit and be like, whew, man. So if I have a class, and I do have some classes where they're very active, right? There's a lot going on in there. And it is a lab class. I'm trying to hand out materials, get them to actually do their lab, and then pick up materials in 50 minutes. Just because they were loud and crazy and my room's a mess doesn't mean that I get time to prepare for the next class. So we have 5-minute passing period. They're leaving and another class is coming right in. Right. And a lot of times, something happened in the previous class. So they're bringing that drama in there as well. And you have to, like you said, be a counselor, a social worker, get them to focus, calm them down. And then there's also the lesson prepping as well. And I'm blessed that because I did like all the biochem and stuff in college, usually I can look at the topic of the lesson plan and go, all right, and make my slides. But sometimes there's days where I have like 4 lab classes, or no, there was one day I had 5 lab classes in the whole day. And so it was just back to back, like trying to watch things, trying to prepare things, trying to have things ready on time for them because I had class after class coming in. So it's a really fast-paced job. And I do think if you can be a teacher, you can be a project manager. You can be a manager of anything, really, because there's so much that goes into it behind the scenes, like your lesson prepping, getting materials, all the meetings, all the reaching out to parents and trying to work with them. So there's just, there's a lot. It's really fun, though. It's very, it confirms me. It makes me go, I can handle a lot.
Right. Yes, I was wondering too if you were involved in any of the ministries, either education or health and human services.
Not yet. No, not yet.
She means starting tomorrow. No.
Yes.
Right. Like it's on the plan.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, ma'am. So, hold on. I lost my train of thought. Let me bring it back. Oh, so again, talking about biology using the right hands help change the world. Again, I want to go back and use this as a segue. I still am on when you were talking about the self-advocacy portion. A lot of times, so for me, and again, this is me as an engineer thinking, when I looked at the topic, my mind like goes straight to things like, bioprosthetics and soft materials and things like that. If you were to give some insights as to maybe a top 3 to 5, or your maybe top 3 to 5 avenues in which biology or those right hands can use biology to change the world, and maybe think outside of the engineering discipline, what would some of those things look like, and how could people kind of get their hands and feet wet in those avenues?
Okay. That's a great question. So one thing for sure is agriculture. I teach my students about ecology, and we learn about like symbiotic relationships and how different organisms coexist together. And some of them, they don't coexist either. Right. So that's something that you can take, even with genetics and like crossing different plants and things like that. You can easily take that and translate into agriculture. So we all need food. Farming is very important. So somebody can take that knowledge and, make a farm. Maybe they're trying to, they want their cows, they want chickens. They're trying to figure out how to keep them healthy. Ecology is very important, and it's very glossed over in biology, but it's very important for students to learn as well. Another thing is that a lot of the labs that we do, they're very small and simple, and the students think they're basic, but it gives them skills that they can apply to later labs. So when they get to college, they can think back on the enzyme lab we did and go, oh, okay, I learned about enzymes. I learned how they're very specific. How can I translate that into my college project? So that's one thing. And then also, I think it just lays a foundation for scientific knowledge just in general. So they're learning biology. Woohoo, yay. But now they're going to go to chemistry. And you use a lot of biology and chemistry as well. And then they can take that, what they've learned, and translate into other things. For for example, we've launched rockets. That's not biology related at all. But they enjoy learning about, I think it's the silica or whatever is in the little tube that launches it. They enjoy that. We've 3D printed different components for houses. So they built a wooden shed and then they had to 3D print like the roof and the door. We don't really touch on force and mass in biology, but we've built bridges as well. So there's some things that they seem small, but they can translate very well.
Absolutely. Praise be to Allah. And I would argue, I think my son or daughter almost launched a rocket. It's not the rocket we're thinking about, but it was, smelled a little bit, but, it was it was like something launched, but praise be to Allah. This is something I think that we don't always think about. And I think for me, when you talk about relationships, symbiotic and everything, what can the study of the body teach us about interpersonal and societal relationships? So one of the things that I always think about is I don't see the major organs being worried about what the other organs do. The kidney gonna do what the kidney does, no matter what the heart is doing. Well, now again, if you have some issue with another organ, it may ill affect another one. But as far as my goal is to do what I'm supposed to do.
Yes.
Right. So is there a lesson in that for us, whether it be as siblings, and as married couples, as brothers and sisters in faith and organizations? Is there a lesson in that? And if so, what is it? And how do we start to learn that?
Yes. So it makes me think of, that phrase, like, stay in your own lane.
Yes.
But usually a highway has multiple lanes, right? And they're all going in the same direction. So yes, we stay in our lane. We, focus on our job. We don't really bother other people, which everyone should be striving to do that. However, we should all be united towards a common goal. So especially when it comes to being brothers and sisters in our faith, we all should, be a respectful person. You stay in your own lane, but we're united in a common goal, which is to reach and save our people. So everybody should be moving in the same direction, but not really interfering or messing with each other. We should be working together.
Absolutely. And when you want to change lanes, turn your turn signal on.
Yes.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Give a little, ask, say something.
Right.
How can I help? May I come and do? You just don't just swerve. Go right into the. We don't want to do that. That's how you create crashes on the highway.
Yes.
Praise be to Allah. Sister Dr. Joy, I know you have something to talk about.
Well, I love the question, actually, because you're asking the study of the body and how it relates to interpersonal relationships. And Sister Ilyasah kind of hit it on the head. In Chinese medicine, we look at, let's take, for example, herbal formulas. And when we are putting together an herbal formula for a patient, we've already done the diagnostics. We already know what channels need to be treated in order to help treat the patient's ailment. And so in the, all stemming back to the big dynasties like the Han, the Zhou, the Tang dynasties, thousands and thousands of years ago, they realized that the formulas actually had a hierarchy. And so you needed a principal herb at the tippy top of your formula to know that this is what you were actually treating in the body. And they marked these by kind of paralleling them through their military system, actually. So you had an emperor in your formula, an emperor herb, right? So that could look like ma huang, which is ephedra, which we can't really get in the United States, but that is such a key herb for helping asthmatics open up the lungs and open up the chest. It's such a potent, wonderful herb when used correctly, when it's in the right hands. And so then you have an envoy herb, you have a general herb, all these herbs are actually working together. And so we have to think of what Sister Ilyasah was saying in terms of brothers and sisters, not only in Christ, but in the ranks, right? There has to be an order of command. And even in the body, when you're thinking of, what actually rules the entire body, what pumps your organs with all this vital energy in the entire body, the organs have to actually have that same kind of chain of command in order to function in that same direction.
Yes, I'm gonna have to talk to you more about that emperor herb, that breakdown. I'm like, that was cute. I feel like we had a show. Every time we had a show, I want to do another live show with Sister Dr. Joy. Did she talk about that last time? No, like I just studied some Chinese medicine. What books did I get? At this time, family, it doesn't feel like it. It's already halfway through the program. We are going to segue into the number one tool, or number one minister, if you will, outside of the Honorable Minister Farrakhan in Nation Islam. This is our final call newspaper plug, and then we'll get back into the build after this. Stay tuned, family.
Now you can get the same uncompromising truth you've come to expect from the Final Call newspaper on all your connected devices. Subscribe to the Final Call digital edition today. Go to subscribe.finalcalldigital.com.
Peace. This is Naya Muhammad, a future architect, and you're watching The STEM Files.
And we are back, family. All praises due to Allah. I want to get, I guess, a little more personal as far as, some of the things you like. So obviously, we kind of mentioned, we talked about either earlier in the show or before, you have liked the STEM Files for a while, and I was very curious, as one producing this for some time, you never see yourself, right? And me and Brother Freak, and that's just Dr. Joy, we talk about, like, I guess, being humbled by, like, people really enjoying it. It's not that you feel like you can't do something, it's that, like, it really goes over well. So why the STEM Files? What do you like most? I guess, what value does it add to you as both a consumer and now a soon-to-be STEM Files alum?
I always learn something new whenever I watch the show. And I think that's the thing that makes me, like, very excited, because I feel like as hosts, you guys are very personable and warm. And so I'm like, oh, they're so cool. But then also, whoever's talking, I always learn something new. And there's some topics where I would have never thought of it or thought I would be interested in it as well. Mm-hmm. And I'm listening, like, whoever was talking about trades and, like, engineering, and someone with a water filtration system, like, those are things that I wouldn't really think to watch or think to learn about. And then I see them talking about it on your show, and I'm like, wow, that's actually really interesting. So it's just a way for me to learn more about things that I didn't even know existed. And it's a really easy, I'll put it on while I'm doing stuff in my classroom or making lesson plans. I'm like, oh, I learned something today. Okay.
That's what's up. So that's so dope. Like, because, like, sometimes it's like, man, like, I'm my own worst critic. I think I can get a little bit like, am I rambling? Are we adding value? Are we just talking? But, like, when we kind of hear people like, no, like, I learned this in the third, or, like, keep going, or, like, y'all are like the STEM, earn your leisure. And, like, I was like, oh, praise be to Allah. That's really cool. And I think the biggest thing, and this is just for me, I'm as a nation, baby, it's always most important and most rewarding for me when I see the other believers enjoy the content. Not that, because we do have those who enjoy, who are lost, found, and outside of the ranks. But when those who believe like you, see the same flag, find value in what you do and can see the teachings in it, that lets me to know I feel like we're on the right path, and we're actually doing something that Allah would be pleased with. So all praises to Allah. Sister Dr. Joy.
I think that is excellent. Thank you, Sister Ilyasah, for just your vote of confidence, because even when, I'll be transparent, when the brothers invited me to be a co-host, I was excited, but I had to think about it for a second, because I was like, I'm just a doctor of Chinese medicine. I don't know if it's STEM. I'm not STEM, and then I'm like, no, I'm medicine. Like, I'm legitimate medicine, but it's because of the atmosphere that we live in. And also what I speak about is it's very ancient, but it's so new, right, to everybody. So it's a real opportunity for me. And it's definitely a privilege and an honor to just try and emphasize what medicine can look like, is looking like, can do, and all, irregardless of Western models of medicine. It can work in tandem, but it can be completely sovereign as well. So thank you. Praise be to Allah.
Well, to be honest, regardless of what people will say about, starting 1400 years ago, we know from our lessons ain't nothing more ancient than Islam.
Come on.
So when we think we have something old or it's antiquated, a big part of the issues that are pervasive today is that everyone wants to try something new
Yes.
and get away from not tradition, but get away from that which works.
Right.
Sister Ilyasah, can you tell us a bit about your journey in Islam and how that connects to your interest in, and I will say now, prowess in biology and as a teacher? Just, paint that picture for us a bit.
Yes, sir. Well, I am a nation baby, so I can say like Islam is just all I've ever known. But we all arrive at that point where you have to get registered or you don't, and it's like a little fork in the road. But when I got registered, I think I was like 15. Like the moment they said I could, I was like, I want to do it.
Yes, ma'am.
But one thing I can say is since I got registered so young, I had to go through another like rebirth in Islam when I got older because I was in high school, I was still learning and growing. But when I got out of college, I really like grew into Islam and then I started studying more and I was like, oh yeah, I made the right decision. So it was more of a confirmation when I got older. And then I feel like in the nation being a teacher and having knowledge is a really important thing as well, especially for our younger children, because, we're all about self-education and MUI and teaching our the right thing. So that's something that's really important to me because I don't teach at an MUI, I teach at a charter school. But I try to make sure that I am really reaching out to my students, especially those that are Black and brown as well. Because I saw so many teachers just like look at them and be like, oh, you don't know anything.
Right.
So that's something that's really important to me in making sure that just because this child over here isn't in the nation, they're still so smart and so talented and so capable. And making sure that I'm pushing them to reach that capability instead of just saying, oh, well, this is what's in the curriculum and it's okay if you don't really achieve it. I don't really care and no big deal. So it's really important to me to push my students and make sure that, they're realizing their capabilities instead of just sitting there and being bored and not finding themselves in science.
Can I bear witness for a minute? Again, every time you say something. So I want to talk about Islam's biology for a minute because Islam's biology says, I am mathematics. Yes. That's what that says.
Mm-hmm.
So when you talked about teachers overlooking students in our community, Black students in the brown community, as if, oh, you don't know this. Well, let me focus over here. What I notice sometimes, and y'all can attest to this if I'm, and let me know if I'm wrong. A lot of teachers, they want to spend time with those who make them look good, not those who need their help.
Come on.
So, for example, it's like, okay, you teach, but you spend the time with those who readily get information. So it's like, it's not that you are so much a good teacher as you have a really sharp student. And now you have other students who really need help, but because all you know how to do is give forth information and you don't have any level of disciplinary posture, you get walked around on, but now you want to prescribe this or say they need that, or now, oh, you don't have any control over your classroom. I think a lot of times what's missing is Islam's biology. When a lot of students don't understand that regardless of what you want to be in life, you are or can find anything you study in you. We're taught that the original man writes his history and then he lives it, right? I was having a conversation with, I think it was my brother or one of my fellow FOI or just positive brothers. And I was talking about, what a very small like manifestation or example of that is, and why people who are successful do this, planning out your day. When you take the time to write out and plan out the goals for the day and the week, that is you literally writing out your history and then walking into it and then being successful. And then you can literally start to chart and almost like predetermine what your life is going to look like before it even happens.
That's right.
So at no point do I think that a child is incapable. I just may not be the one to help them realize that they are.
Yes.
And that's where the ego has to be put aside. So again, we're talking about biology in the right hands, but it's really science in the right hands. How can we change the world? And then again, a change, as we know, that delta can be either positive or negative, or one way or the other. We want to change in a certain direction that brings us a certain result. So I'm talking too long, since Joy. Go ahead.
Well, one way and one key thing that I believe that you said was to keep yourself healthy. And I feel like that is the basis of the trajectory for where you really want to see your life go. And how you can help usher in, this information to the children and to our future. So I would like to know, Sister Ilyasah, how you keep yourself healthy.
Yes, ma'am. Well, sorry. One thing that last year I got a vitamin deficiency, right? Because I stopped eating meat. And when you become a vegetarian, you have to take a B12 supplement. And I knew this, but I'm stubborn and I didn't order the vitamin. And I was like, oh, it'll be fine. So I got to December and I got like really anemic. And my students were like, Miss, what's wrong with you? You have no energy. You don't have bubbly, any of that. So definitely taking the supplements that you need. We all have different bodies that work differently. Some of us need more vitamin D. Some of us need more B12. So just knowing what you need to keep yourself healthy. And then, eating that navy bean soup.
Come on.
You got to eat your navy beans. And then also, I would say cooking at home a lot too, and making sure that you know what's in your food, because I've noticed that if I'm busy or I order lunch that week, it's not that good. I'm more tired. I have less energy. So making sure that you're feeding yourself the proper nutritional content.
Yes, ma'am. Praise be to Allah. Now, are you a meal prepper? Do you set your stuff out for the week?
I try, but see, I live with my parents and my brother. So if I meal prep, my dad might see that as, oh, you made my lunch.
I'm dead.
So honestly, I just make a big meal for everybody, and we just.
Yes, oh, that's for me, right?
Right. That's exactly what happens.
That's funny. Oh wow, praise be to Allah. So we're talking. We talked about health, personal. We talked about it as a society. When you're trying to reach a goal, and we know we have to have the energy, but what are some things as it pertains to health or biology that, let's say, we don't really think about? I think sometimes it's easy to talk about, eat well, get some sleep or whatever. What are some things, if you could pick out as it pertains to generally being healthy or being able to keep your motor going, that, the average person may not think is important?
I would say patience and consistency. Because if you're consistently not eating well, then you're consistently doing damage to your body and you're going to be tired. So you can't just eat a salad one day and go, oh, I'm healthy now.
Right.
You have to consistently fuel your body properly. Same thing with our vitamins and minerals. When you get deficient, you have to consistently take your supplements so that you can build back up your supply. But if you take your vitamin one day, the next day you're still going to be tired. It doesn't work that way. And then also just patience, because especially when you're trying to have healthier habits, maybe you want to be more physically active and go to the gym. You have to be patient with yourself, because that first workout, you're going to be tired, just going to be hurting, out of breath, all of that stuff. But if you give up the moment that you try to start moving towards your goal, you're never going to reach that goal. So you have to be consistent with yourself and say, every day I'm going to do X, Y, Z. Every day I'm going to eat healthy and I'm going to maybe walk an hour. Might be a slow walk, but I'm going to walk around this neighborhood. And then once you do that, after a while, you will start to see progress. But if you're not patient with yourself and if you're not consistent, there's no progress at all.
That's right. Yes, ma'am.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Sister Dr. Joy. And you hear a lot of this when you see people who are in the self-help, motivational speaking type thing. But I want to know maybe some scientific bearing. Do you know whether or not how the brain registers a success, whether it's big or large. So, for example, people always talk about small victories, and whether or not like we focus on, okay, I'm going to go to the gym every day all year versus like, let's go to the gym today.
Mhm.
Tomorrow comes. Let's go to the gym today.
Mhm.
Tomorrow comes. Let's go to the gym today. So, what is there something to the brain in this register of a victory or success, no matter how big or small, and how that impacts then your ability to be consistent and then ward off anxiety and grief?
Honestly, I think it really has a lot to do with the hormones. When you're thinking about cortisol spikes, and even insulin resistance, something like that can cause so much damage, including diabetes, PCOS for women. So when you start healthy habits, you are raising your endorphins, you are lowering your cortisol, your cholesterol, you are, getting better sleep and falling into that deep REM sleep. So there's actual physical attributes that are happening inside the body that do feel good and feel natural. And we're not used to being in that realm. So it might feel kind of foreign, the first like day or two. But really what Sister Ilyasah is attesting to is practice just makes better practice. And in terms of, shifting gears into a healthier lifestyle, you're going to feel the effects. And then I think the brain actually needs to see the effects, right? To get that positive feedback loop happening, like, oh, now I've lost 5 pounds, or now I can fit into my MGT garment better now, like there's all these like little
Talk
like,
about yeah. Say ooh, like,
yeah, right. Ready for
everybody had that
Saturday.
ooh moment. That's everybody know what that is. Yeah, yeah. And then don't and listen. This is a little thing about me. I am like the hype man husband. So like for me, when my wife, I'd be like, oh, okay, kill him. I'm like, I'm in the back. Now listen, I am that dude, and I do that with like my like sisters and everything too. Like I'm very like friendly. So like I had those moments, and like I see like somebody on Instagram, I say, okay, you killing them or whatever. I mean, okay, stunting on them. I did this to Dr. Joe the other day. She had the brown on stunt. I said, okay, with the chocolate drips and the Dr. Joe. Okay. Praise be to
Brother
Allah.
hyped me up. I was thank you. All praise due to Allah. I needed that actually that day.
Praise be
was
to Allah. Yes,
was
man.
positive feedback. So yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, well, we are in the last 7 minutes of today's show, which is insane. So the time went by so fast. I didn't sense any nervousness, so I feel like you lied to me, Sister Leah. So we're gonna talk about that after the program. We said we tell the truth regardless of whom or what, but I'm not gonna report you or nothing. Anywho, I want to ask, get kind of segue into some of the final questions. I would venture to say your hands are like some of the right hands, right, for changing the world through biology. Looking at yourself in the near and distant future, what is maybe changing the world? What lasting impact would you like to have, whether it be as a teacher, as a biologist, as an MGT, as a youngster trying to find her way? What does that change, or what does that stamp look like, Celia?
I really would like more people to understand like the basics of science and be passionate about it. And I know it's hard to tell someone what to be passionate about, but that's one thing I really enjoy is getting students excited about science and helping them find their own way in it, whether it's exploding rockets or 3D printing, whatever brings them joy so that they can apply it to their life. So I've been thinking about like in the future being like a STEM coach in the district or something where I'm working with teachers to help them better serve their students.
Absolutely. Ooh, I like that. Praise be to Allah. Sister Dr. Joy, anything to add to that?
I don't have anything to add at the moment because I feel like that summed it up. I mean, I feel like you are a wonderful inspiration already to your students. I'm hoping that they will see this episode, inshallah, so that they know what's up.
Yes, ma'am.
And thank you so much, sis. Thank you so much for being a guest.
Yes.
And let's shout out to school. What school you teach at? Come on now, what's up?
I teach at Harmony School of Technology.
Army School of Technology. If y'all watching, we see y'all. Praise be to Allah. We got Sister, Miss, or whatever she goes by. Sorry, Ilyasah on, and she is wonderful. Y'all have a gem of a teacher. Praise be to Allah. I guess again, as we continue to segue, one of the things I think but Tariq and I, we used to ask, all the time early in the show, and I think it's kind of going into this new year. It's kind of good to bring it back. If you're dealing with a young person, say niece, nephew, what have you, or just someone who's, let's just say, this is also, what is science, or what does science mean to you? What would you tell them?
I would tell them, like, science is life. Like how we say Islam is mathematics, science is life. Science is how your body functions, how the environment functions, how things work together to allow us to function in our environment. So there's nothing around you that's not science, from any branch of science. Like this computer, that's that's not mechanical engineering. That's electrical engineering. Honestly, I don't know, because I'm not an engineer.
We'll just say you can find almost every aspect of engineering in this computer. There's electrical, there is material science, there is computer engineering, computer science. There's so many, and there's even some aspects of civil, or if you want to call it like industrial, because you have to mine out certain raw materials that go into like the actual screen. If you have a screen, it's a whole other thing as well. So see, look at that. Praise be to Allah. Praise be to Allah. Man, I think for me, one of my favorite like STEM combos that we have is when we have like life science meets engineering. I think for me, I told Brother Tariq, one of the things that helps me, because I don't have a life science background, is I always feel like engineering draws inspiration from the life sciences. So for example, when we we work to solve a problem, typically nature gives us the solution. So whether we're talking about simple machines or whatever, we find those things, wheel, all these things like in nature, right? So we will look at, okay, in the prosthetics realm, right? Okay, well, this moves like this. How can I replicate the characteristics of said creature or said phenomena to be utilized in this engine application or what have you? So you could not be an engineer, or you could not have engineering and be successful in it if it were not for those who research and do deep research in the life sciences. So absolutely. Was this Dr. Joy, anything on that or anything else?
I mean, I agree with you, Brother Jabril, and I do think that even in this episode, we've kind of, had the cross-sectioning, because we're talking about the architecture of the world that we want to live in and the world that we really want to create. And, how are we doing this, and how are we honoring the cause for Allah, and we are literally talking about that. We are living those examples, inshallah, may it be pleasing to Allah, just by talking about the science and the beauty and the art of the lives that we are creating together. So I feel like that's very, very important. And all praise is due to Allah that these right hands are coming together, to help mold that and to help mold the future.
Praise be to Allah. Before we close, family, remember to follow us at the STEM Files on all platforms: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Also at Tariq Cardiac, at Jabrillion_engineering, at the Chi, that's not Key, the Chi Mechanic on Instagram. Sister Ilyasah, you've been a pleasure. Anything you'd like to leave our audience with before we close? Anything at all?
Yes, and this is just for like the parents or people with younger children in their lives. You don't have to send them to school to learn how to do science. So if you see they're interested in something, like go on Amazon. If they like rockets, you can go on Amazon and get those materials. You can go on Amazon and get the materials to build towers and learn about structural support. The DNA extraction lab I do with my students, it takes dish soap and alcohol and strawberries. So
come on.
That your children are interested in, you can go online and find the resources to help enrich them. You don't have to wait for their teacher. You can help yourselves.
Well, you heard it. Sister Ilyasah said, listen, it ain't just my job to teach your children, right? Parent-teacher relationship. Come on, man.
Yes.
Home and school. Or if you like homeschool, that's a whole nother topic for another time. Praise well, family, I've been well fed. I pray you all have been well fed. Sister Ilyasah, thank you so much. I was really looking forward to this. Just reconnecting. I know it's been a while since I was in Houston that time, which again, I truly appreciated the invitation and had a wonderful time and was treated so well. I didn't even, it was so much I didn't even expect. I was just like, this is like a lot in a cool way. Praise you a lot. The brilliant engineer, G mechanic, typically joined by our brother Tariq. Again, he's here in spirit. Ilyasah. Until next time, family, we love you. We appreciate you. Stay tapped in. When we get to you next time, it will be the new year in the Gregorian calendar. You don't have to throw that out there. You don't have to throw that out there.
That's right. See y'all next year.
They allow